Alright, what's going on? It's been a while. I hope everyone's doing good. This is my first video after a really long time and actually my first ever tutorial, so hopefully it goes well. But yeah, before we get started, I just want to mention that this video is geared towards beginners. You don't have to be a photographer in order to make the most out of these tips, because come on, I mean, these days everyone is a photographer. Everyone has great phones that take amazing photos, so you don't need expensive cameras to take good pictures. So without further ado, let's get right into this. My number one tip is to use grids. What are grids? Grids are pretty much like the two vertical lines and the two horizontal lines on your camera screen. I'm just going to put up a screenshot of grids on an iPhone, but you can easily find that on any other Android phone. If you cannot find the grids on your screen, just go to settings and there should be an option to turn on the grids. It's the most basic thing, but a lot of people take crooked photos and it just annoys me so much because, I mean, come on, just turn the camera that way. Like, it's just, yeah. Grids are going to help you get a good reference point off the horizon and you can level your photos. And the best part about grids is you can use the rule of thirds. So basically what rule of thirds is, if you look at the 9 quadrants, they're basically these 4 points. There's psychology behind it that if you place a subject near these points, the photo composition appears to be the best and it's most visually appealing. I'm just going to show a couple of examples of how I have used the rule of thirds in my photography. Here's an example of a picture I took in New Zealand in an ice cave. You can see that I've placed myself in the bottom right quadrant and right near the point. That helps the composition look way better. Here's another example. I think that one was in California, but again, I am in the bottom third. You don't have to be in the bottom third. It can be any quadrant, but just make sure you're closer to those 4 points and your composition should look good. Tip number 2 is framing the shot. I see people make so many mistakes while framing the shot, and in my opinion, framing the shot and the composition are the most important factors of how good a photo is. If you don't have a good frame, the lighting, editing, none of that matters because it's just not going to be appealing. So in order to have good framing, you need to pay attention to what's in the frame, but also what's not in the frame. Well, let's say if you're trying to showcase your fancy food that you're eating at a restaurant, when you're trying to take a picture, try to focus on the food, try to minimize all the distractions around. So if you're taking a picture of your plate, try to avoid your friend's hands coming into the picture, the napkins, the silverware, even like the drinks and stuff. Try to frame the shot in such a way that the focus of the photo stays on the food rather than the viewer having to find what the subject of the image is. One really helpful tip for framing the shot is to use camera movement to help you frame the shots. Smallest of the camera movement can make a drastic impact. Here in this picture I took in Budapest, you can see how the first picture has something distracting in the bottom. All I had to do was to remove that distraction was just lift my camera up a bit and the distraction was gone. So it's that simple. Just move your camera a bit, don't just stay stationary, move around and you'll find great photos. Tip number 3, zooming in and zooming out. Now, it might sound super basic, but people don't understand how massive of an impact zooming in and zooming out has on an image. For example, in these images, you can see the first image is taken using a wide angle lens, which might be, if you're using a phone, might be around 0.5x. And the second image is taken using a telephoto lens, which is zoomed in quite a lot, which might be somewhere around 10x on your phone. You can straight away see that the image with the wide angle lens, the guy looks much more narrower, his shoulders are narrow, his nose is pointing outwards, his face is squished. But on the other hand, when you look at the picture with a telephoto lens, you can see that his face is nice and appealing, his shoulders look broader. So how does this translate into photography? Pro tip, always use telephoto or zoom lens when taking pictures of humans. But if you're taking landscape pictures, go for the wide angle lens. Try to avoid using wide angle for taking portraits, because using wide angle lens can sometimes make humans look not so appealing. And yeah, be intentional with how you use your zoom. So let's say if you're taking a picture of your friend, it's a portrait, so you want to zoom in, just like I mentioned. But let's say you're close to them, so you can only have their face in and you want their whole body portrait. So instead of zooming out, stay at this same zoom, just walk back so you can have more of them in the frame rather than zooming out, because if you zoom out, you're going to lose out that portrait look. All right, tip number 4, camera angle. This is so important and so overlooked. The biggest mistake I see people make is they don't try to put in any effort into thinking what angles might look good. They just simply pull out their phone and take a picture right at their eye level, which is what everyone is used to seeing. But to make your pictures look interesting, I would recommend going closer to the ground or higher than your eye level. This is going to give a different perspective, which people aren't used to, and it will make your pictures look good. For example, in this picture, it's the same place, but the first picture I just took it at normal eye level, which doesn't look that fancy. But when I took another picture, I went all the way close to the ground, and it just instantly makes the picture look way more cooler, just because there's more depth and it's a unique perspective which people aren't used to, because no one sleeps on the ground. I mean, come on. So next time you're taking a picture, don't take it at eye level, use different angles. Tip 5, use a clean background. It is so annoying to have a really busy background because it just takes away from the focus of the picture. I see people take pictures at all these tourist attractions with thousands of people behind them, and while you cannot really do anything about the crowds, there are a couple of things that you can do to minimize the distractions. So let's say if you're at a really crowded place, the most obvious thing you can do is to reach early or stay until later when people go away. Or what you can do is go away from the crowd, even though the crowd is behind you. If you are just simply distancing yourself from them, there should be enough space to make the crowds appear tinier in the pictures, and it's just going to be way less distracting. If you can, totally avoid it, but if you cannot, this is a way to get around that. Just to show you how massive of an impact clean background can make, this is a picture of me that I took at the art museum, which is a super crowded place. I went there during sunset, which is the peak time, and it is packed. I had to do a lot of Photoshop to get rid of all the people in the back, but this isn't about the Photoshop or editing. This is just to show you how massive of an impact it can make if your background is clean. Tip number 6, leading lines. Now, leading lines is a photography terminology, but leading lines is a fancy word for objects and subjects around you that help you bring your viewers' attention from point A to point B. I'll just give you a quick example. In this picture of me running towards Mount Taranaki, you can see that on the road, the patches on the road act as leading lines in this case, which brings the viewer's attention from the bottom of the picture to me, which is the subject in this case. And the clouds at the top also do something similar. They bring the attention towards the peak, which is the second subject in this image. Next time you're taking a picture, use leading lines around you to bring attention of your viewers to the subject. Here's an example of taking a photo of a guitar. Rather than taking the picture of this guitar perpendicular to the wall, what you should be doing is just place the guitar at the same place, but go closer to the wall and use the brick lines on the wall to drive your viewers' attention towards the guitar. You don't necessarily have to do this with elements around you. You can do this in editing as well. Here's an example of an image where I used a gradient filter to bring my viewers' attention from the bottom to the center of the frame where the subject is. And you can straight away see such a big impact on the image after I've applied the gradient. The viewer's eye just goes towards the center rather than just wandering around for where the subject is. Tip number 7. Lighting is so important, and people often overlook lighting while taking pictures. While I'm not asking you to bring in fancy studio lights and do like a whole studio photo shoot, all you have to do is use the light available to you to the best of your advantage. So if it's sunny outside, don't take pictures in sun, because direct sunlight causes super harsh shadows on your subject and it just looks terrible. So don't ever shoot in direct sunlight. If there's direct sunlight and you have to take pictures, I would recommend just go in the shade and take pictures there. Here's a couple examples of how I have taken the same picture in direct sunlight, and then second one just moving it a bit to the shade, and you can straight away see that the one with direct sunlight has so many harsh shadows, whereas the other one is so polished and has soft light and looks much more professional. And another thing you can do is to try to avoid shooting pictures during midday. Either take pictures early in the morning during sunrise or take it later in the day during sunset. This is going to give you the best and soft light and give you that nice and golden look. Tip number 8, super obvious. It's to clean your lens. When I hear people say their pictures are blurry and stuff, and when I look at their lens, it's just all fingerprints, I'm like, just clean it. It's super obvious, but a lot of people don't clean their lenses. So even if it's your phone, like phone tends to get the dirtiest the most. So always before taking pictures, just do that, and it's done. And finally, moving on to the bonus tip. This is geared towards mobile photography only. This is not for if you're taking pictures on your camera, but have you ever had an instance where you're taking a picture of someone and the sky behind them is super bright that when you try to focus on the person, the sky in the back just blows out and it's just all white? Well, there's a quick fix. All you have to do is try to focus on the person, and then when you focus on the person, it's gonna make them brighter, but the sky look way blown out and white. But that's not an issue. Once you're focused on the person, bring the exposure down, and you can see that the subject in this case is getting really dark, but the detail in the sky is coming back, which is exactly what we want. And keeping that same settings, take a picture. Once the picture is taken, go to settings and go to edit, go to shadows, bring the shadows up. Now move on to highlights, bring the highlights down, and there you have it. You can see it makes such a huge difference. The sky is perfectly lit, the subject is not dark anymore, and everything just looks nice. So there you have it. Alright guys, that is all for me. If you like that, if any of those tips helped you, please hit that like button. It means a lot to me and helps out this channel. And if you aren't already, subscribe, because I'm going to be posting more videos going forward. I have always wanted to try out this YouTube thing, and I finally have time now that I've graduated. So I'm going to try it out and bring you guys along. So subscribe and follow my journey. Peace.